Hi everyone, it's Jerry. I'm going to share a game with you I played recently against LeelaKnightOdds. It's my most recent game. I played it 4 days ago, a 3+2 Blitz game, and I'm going to kind of take you through my train of thought as I was playing. I wasn't recording while playing. It's difficult enough trying to win without commentating. I was 100% focused on the game, and I'll kind of give some tips along the way, things I think may be helpful if you're trying to tackle this monster. So right out of the gates, I was recalling the game Joel Benjamin played as black here. Same scenario, no king knight. He replied to c4 in the same way with e5. Things are significantly different in this game. Leela in that game followed with queen c2, and after the knight was brought out, e3 was played. Benjamin's continuation from there was to build in the center. In this game, the knight goes to c3, and we have a significant difference in this game, and that is the e-pawn. It goes 2 steps in this case. Now, I was already feeling pretty comfortable. I'm not leaning towards this central break at this stage. I was just happy at this point that there is now a hole on d4. So I threw a piece there, eyeing up that weak spot. Now, this idea of me being comfortable is not a new experience when playing against Leela. I've felt that many times before, and there seems to always be at some stage some curveball thrown my way, and then just changes the complexion of the game entirely. But this one I felt like I was in pretty much complete control throughout. Now, I'm just preserving my dark square bishop. I'm trying to duck any imbalance. So this idea of a knight for bishop exchange, I'm ruling that out by flicking in a6. And I once more just pinpoint this d4 square. Notice something I'm not doing with these first handful of moves. I'm not castling. I like following the rule here in playing against Leela. Don't commit your king until you know where Leela's king goes first. So I'm already sensing that this is going to be the break for white eventually with f4 and a follow-up f5. If you're castling on the side of the board where your opponent has a pawn planted on your side, you're asking for trouble, especially against Leela. I know that these games, Leela shoots for these space advantages in the center, kingside, queenside. In some way or another, I know that's going to happen. So can't prevent it all. So I'm just staying flexible at this point with my king. I hop in the center. I already feel that this is sort of an important move in a way, playing against Leela. This knight on d4 is in fact paving the way for this follow-up b5. And this early b5 is in a way designed to prevent white from maybe acquiring space on the queen side. So I don't know, if I make a passing move, I feel like, these pawns will start crawling up and there's going to be some space advantage for Leela on the queen's wing. So I'm sort of cutting that one out. I'm going to establish some space on the queen side. So I did this early. My king still in the center. Even though I know the king is on the king side here, I'm not going king side because there's still this idea of planting a pawn here and some kind of steamroller. So I go to b4, knight e2, and I was pretty quick to just go ahead and snap off the knight. Not much thought at all. If I don't take the knight, I don't know, maybe knight g1 and another piece is preserved and kind of dances around my invasive knight. I've experienced that before. So let's just get the knights off. I have control over the position here. This d4 break, bishop outside the chain. Things are looking good. Continue with h6 here. I'm anticipating f4, a chop, and then some pin on my knight. My bishop is all in, on this aggressive state outside the chain, so forget about trying to break a pin. I'm just nipping out the bishop g5 idea. And just playing on the queen side here, I was fine inviting f5 with tempo here. Didn't mind that. And it is, in fact, played, so a very locked position at this stage. And I ended up rerouting my queen to what I think is a fantastic square. Full control here, extra control over d4. Now, I want to point out, actually, before I played queen to b6 here, when h4 was played, what was crossing my mind is this idea to clamp down on g4. So I felt like there were many structural tests being thrown my way throughout the game. I thought, is this a moment to play h5? And then if ever this, I'm chopping away, there's a weak pawn here. I ended up deciding against this because if I play here, there's bishop here. It's going to remove my knight. It's going to win a pawn, and there's going to be a majority on the king's side. So I didn't go in that direction. Queen b6 in this game. And I'm maneuvering here. I'm opening up a square for my knight. And it allows me to do this. I mean, there isn't really much it can do. I'm able to play here no matter what. I probably spent a little bit too much time at this point in response to h5. I ended up playing f6 here. I'm not sure why that wasn't crossing my mind sooner. What was crossing my mind is this pivot and this idea to control these dark squares. This is where Leela has a potential advantage. There's two invasive pawns on my wing. Ended up playing f6. So we have a completely locked kingside, sort of. I'm still fearful of some pawn break, g5, and then regardless of how I capture, an ensuing break and things open up in that direction. I was still not comfortable, even though it's locked over here. Still not comfortable castling kingside. So these next few moves, I sort of poke around. It doesn't really accomplish anything. I felt that I could afford to do this. I'm in control at this stage. It's defended. I ended up hitting the rewind button, and I have to come up with some plan. Leela's moving every, second or two. So there's one break in the position at this stage, and it involves d5. So I have to get my bishop out of the way and gear up for this break right here. So that's what I shoot for. And I just get some pieces in better position before I do that. There's no rush in this case. So I think this is a perfect square for the knight. And I am finally ready for that d5 break. Increased pressure on this stage, or this pawn here, e4. I get the open file. And now what? Okay, I need to go somewhere else with my knight. I figured this is a good spot, cutting out any idea of a g5 break. If that's hitting, I may very well take with the f-pawn in this case, away from the center. This square opens up, so still in control here. This was another test, I felt, this a4 move. I probably spent the most amount of time at this stage, about 20 seconds, deciding, do I push? Do I capture? And these thoughts are running through my mind because I'm thinking, is it too narrow a path, this open file? Is that going to be enough for me to make progress? I ended up deciding that it would be enough, so the queen side remains closed. I was also fearful if I push here, trying to keep these pawns disjointed, maybe target them. Felt like I might end up losing that pawn, or even, I believe this was running through my mind as well, the a5 pawn being a target. So I just decided against the capture or the push and worked with the d file alone. So I really glued in the bishop at this point. My bishop's eyes are opened up. I could always target this point, maybe with a battery here, and try and influence b3. And if I could influence b3, I'll have a square to pivot to with my bishop, even if it costs a pawn, just to open up the position and get some trades in. So b3 is in there, more regrouping. By this point, feel much more comfortable castling kingside. There's nothing happening here with g5, nor is there going to be a sacrifice here. It's just not going to work. So a lot of regrouping here, pretty one-sided. White shuffling, I'm reorganizing at this stage. And I felt that it was best to sneak over to the side of the board where I have space. In case there is an accident over here, my king is not nearby. So just some regrouping here. This is going to be the golden square for my knight, the c6 square. So I eventually get it there. And now it's a matter, I can't, after this last move, I should point out, after queen d3, I can't move my bishop just yet. There's going to be the queen for 2 rooks thing going on. It says I could still do that, but it wasn't even a thought. I just quickly brought my king over here to defend my rook. It says I could play this move, and after queen takes rook, I could take here, queen takes pawn, but there's a whole bunch of calculation. I felt like you could just do without that, so I was simply defending my rook at this stage. King on c7. Queen gets out of the way. Now, I know what's about to happen. I'm going to move this bishop, and this rook is going to drop in here. I knew that was coming, just to try and clog up the position. Because if we're trading too much, I should be able to find a way in through these dark squares. So I anticipated this rook d5 move. I covered it with my knight, and only then, well, I moved my king a little bit. I'm not sure exactly why I'm moving my king like this, but eventually I move the bishop. We get one exchange in of the rooks, and then sure enough, rook goes to d5. I take with the knight, not creating any imbalance. We still, by taking with the knight, we both have the bishop pair, but I have the extra rook. Now, another important moment, this didn't take too long. I realized I need some room to maneuver. So it's important, I believe, I play e4 here. So if I'm just moving my king, let's say, to defend a pawn, I'm not exactly sure how I'm making progress in this position after queen to e4. Yes, I'm up the rook, but how exactly am I breaking through? Not clear to me, especially with this time control. Okay. After this capture, e4, just get out of the way. I want some file to work with, so that's what I went with. And this last move here, bishop d4, I want to anticipate pressure on this pawn. So that's secure. And I was actually seeing some ghosts at this point here. For some reason, I was thinking, I can't quite describe it. I was thinking the queen could maybe somehow get here. All right, that's just not happening, but a weird thought that was running through my mind, I recall. I just want my rook here at this stage. The pawn is pinned, no fear of a pawn advance. Also, queen here after rook here. The queen, they're going to have to go for a queen exchange. So I wasn't worried about that. I get to the open file. Things are looking good here. And I was right around here looking at 30 seconds, pretty comfortable at this point. This last little maneuver with my bishop, I thought, okay, I'm well on my way to breaking through. My bishop defends the pawn, just a little bit of pressure, and a nice thing here is that even if there is a second attacker on c5, king g6, or excuse me, b6, is a perfect way to defend. I like to also point out I am in a pin here, and it's meaningful that there are still a pawns around for the following reason. This pin cannot be exploited in any way. Because I have the a pawn around defending b4, there's never this idea to maybe play queen to e1 and threaten queen takes b4. So can't take advantage of this pinned c5 pawn. Once my king is on this square, this is going to be rock solid. No tricks on c5. My plan, put my queen here, and there's not going to be any taming the queen. So at this point, bishop to d3. So right around here, I mean, I only have about 30 seconds. You have the increment, 3 plus 2. But this is a way I could have gone wrong. What was running through my mind, maybe spent about 10 seconds here. I could exchange queens, and I was thinking, could I go ahead and sacrifice the rook for the bishop? And then I just backed off from that. Now, I could exchange queens here and still be winning, but if I followed through with this idea to get some more exchanges in just to simplify the position, this position here would in fact be a draw. So how do I make progress, even though I'm up to piece for a pawn in this case? There wouldn't be a way. The king could drop here to e4. My only path for my king into white side of the board is through e5. But the king goes here and controls that square. My king can't enter, nor could my light square bishop. These two would be confined to these three ranks. I wouldn't be able to make progress. And this guy here, what is it even doing? I can't influence any of white's pawns. They're all on light. I wouldn't be able to make progress. This would be a draw. It would also be a draw. It doesn't matter if it's a light square bishop or excuse me, a dark square bishop or a light square bishop that white has. It's the same story. King on e4. I wouldn't be able to make progress. Now, I would have been able to make progress if I didn't go forward with a follow-up capture here of the bishop, but what I would have to rely on is some tactic that I was not even, my mind wasn't even thinking about a tactic or a sacrifice. I'd have to rely on a sacrifice is what I'm trying to say. And this would be a way to break through some sacrifice on this d5 square. It's one way. Trying to maneuver in without sacrificing, I wasn't really seeing a way. So for instance, if I did in fact go for the queen exchange and the bishop here recaptured on e2, and some moves like this were played, I believe this bishop could continually move on one of these four squares, and I'm not sure how exactly I'm making progress. Look at the bishop controlling this square, king controlling this one. I would have to go in for that sacrifice, but it simply wasn't on my mind. So in short, once there was this offer of a queen exchange, I could have exchanged and won, not with the follow-up sack of the bishop, but a trick here, a sacrifice on d5. I backed off in this case. I still felt that it was possible to get my queen here, so I did a little bit more maneuvering with my light square bishop, pointing at this pawn here, maybe a sacrifice, and then this pawn runs. Just some reorganizing here. I felt that this was a perfect spot for my queen now. Am I maybe now ready to take the bishop? Possibly. I ended up reorganizing here. I want this battery at this stage. If I go for this sacrifice, it actually says it's winning. Not with the follow-up queen takes queen. If I do that, I'm not winning this still. Notice the king would be inside the box. Should I go for this sacrifice? Push, and there you go. The pawn will be caught. But it says I could have chopped here right now and then gone for this, and that's winning. But I could definitely see myself messing this one up. This queen is getting way too active. No way. So, didn't go in for the sacrifice here. I got the rook out of the way. Want my queen here. That's defended. I ended up defending my bishop here. I could take and then play queen to e5, queen exchange. The structure is changed. It's going to be a win in that position, but I felt like I could play within the structure, not have it influenced in that way, not end up with an isolated pawn. So I did a little bit more regrouping, and it paid off because now I'm there entering. And in fact, during the game, I didn't even realize I'm threatening mate in one. So the king has to, well, the king ended up backing off here. And now I have the perfect arrangement. I'm going to win a piece now. This is the perfect setup. The bishop is hit. So the two attackers on and only one defender. The options here are to defend the bishop or move the bishop. If you defend the bishop, it's mate. So the bishop had to move. And I finally was able to crash through. And the rest is just me kind of being silly, I was looking for some fancy way to finish, but with the time control, I was just satisfied in the end, just throwing my pawns and pieces on the third rank and delivering checkmate as follows. So that's how I ended up tackling Leela here in this Blitz game. Don't castle too early. keep an eye out for those space advantage on kingside, queenside, center. Felt like I was off on the right foot right out of the gates once there was that hole there on d4. I directed many of my pieces there and shot for that early b5, b4 idea. I thought it went a long way with this one. Anyhow, what are your thoughts on this one? Feel free as usual to leave any feedback to this video in the comment section below. Hope you enjoyed it and maybe took a thing or two away. That's all for now. Take care.